Hello everyone and welcome back as we continue our look at the CloudWatcher software. In the last video we looked at the common controls and indications, and we'll now start to look at the main tabbed pages of the software, beginning with the Sensor tab. The Sensor tab presents a concise view of the primary parameters of the CloudWatcher and is largely self-explanatory. The parameters available will vary depending on the specification of your particular device. Here you can see that the laboratory CloudWatcher that I am using to produce this video isn't attached to an anemometer, and therefore this information isn't available. By the way, the fact that this CloudWatcher is located indoors means that many of the readings, such as the sky temperature, may differ significantly from those that you would expect in a properly installed device. You can see that some of the values are coloured and have a subjective description on the right. We'll learn more about this when we look at the Limits tab. Users of the anemometer will be interested to know that we've decided to standardise the wind measurements in line with the International Aviation Standard for reporting airport winds to landing and departing aircraft. This gives the average wind over a 2-minute period and the maximum gust in the preceding 10 minutes. Many of the CloudWatcher sensors can report temperature information, and software versions up to and including 9.2 allowed the user to choose which sensor displays its information on the Sensor tab. As you can see, this video is using a beta version of the software 9.4, which has removed this option and now automatically favours the external relative humidity sensor as the temperature source when this is available. Finally, the last field, dP delta, is simply the rounded difference between the ambient temperature and the dew point. This is sometimes known as the spread and gives an indication of the likelihood of dew forming. Moving on to the Graphs tab, we see for the first time that some tabs have their own menu of secondary tabs on the right-hand side. The subsections correspond to the parameters of the CloudWatcher, and as with the Sensor tab, the presentation of the graphs will depend on the exact specification of the CloudWatcher that you own. In each case, the relevant graph shows the time on the x-axis and the respective value on the y-axis. As with the Sensor tab, the colours and text are determined by the Limits tab, which we will look at shortly. Most of the graphs look similar, except for the temperature graph. Right-clicking anywhere on the surface of the graph gives you access to a control that allows you to set the scale of the graph to suit your local climate. There is one feature of the Graphs tab which isn't obvious at first. The CloudWatcher is able to create images of its graphs, which can be used, for example, to update a website. We'll return to this subject when we look at the Setup tab. So far, the first two tabs have been about the presentation of information, but as we work our way to the right, we find the Limits tab, which is the first tab dedicated to customizing the CloudWatcher to our requirements. You will recall that I mentioned that the Limits tab is where we can customize the colors and text that appear elsewhere in the user interface. Let's use the Cloud section as an example. I want to change the overcast indication to red and change the text to German. To do this, I right-click on the field, select the colour that I want, and in the text window I can amend the text. You'll find that the length of text is limited by the width of the summary section on the left. Click OK to finish. We'll change the other two fields in this section as well. You can see that the text in the Summary section and Sensor tab changes immediately, but the Graphs section may require the software to be closed and restarted for the changes to take effect. The right-hand column contains the various threshold values. I'm not going to go into detail on the specific values here, as there is a large amount of resource dedicated to this subject, both in the user manual and under the More Info button in the CloudWatcher section of the website. I will just show you that to change a value, you left-click and make the desired change. There is some parameter checking, as you can see here, if I try to make the dry threshold equal to the wet. You can right-click to undo any changes that you make. So far, we've looked at the raw information that the CloudWatcher provides to us from its various sensors. We've seen that we can display this information in a graphical form and that we can customize the colors and text of the user interface. We've also seen that we can control what summary information is displayed based on the value of the CloudWatcher data. For the final part of this video, I'd like to show you how to use the information that we've determined so far to make decisions on whether the conditions are safe or unsafe. At first, you might be inclined to think that you've already done this by creating the categories that we've seen on the Limits page. If you've spent several days fine-tuning the rain and cloud settings such that the CloudWatcher shows overcast and rain as the first drops hit the sensor, you might be unpleasantly surprised to find that the CloudWatcher still reports safe and your equipment continues to attempt to image the cloudy sky. Why is this? Well, if we go to the Unsafe tab, the reason will soon become clear. When we first select the tab, we're confronted with a slightly confusing array of grey buttons. You'll notice that there are 2 buttons for each state, as defined on the Limits page. We'll ignore the lower button for the moment and concentrate on the buttons with text. We'll take as our example overcast and rain, as most of us would agree that there is no point in observing under these conditions. If you left-click on the 2 buttons, you'll see that they turn red. Looking to the Safe section of the Common Controls, you'll see that the condition has now become unsafe and the dot has gone from green to red. This is because the CloudWatcher is reporting overcast, as can be seen in the Summary section. If we now deselect both buttons, then the condition returns to safe. I'll repeat the exercise, but this time only selecting rain. Notice the condition hasn't changed to unsafe. This is because the unit is currently reporting dry, as can be seen in the Summary section. Any time that the rain sensor detects rain, this will cause the status of the CloudWatcher to become unsafe. Rain is the one condition that we can probably all agree upon as an unsafe condition. Thereafter, it's a matter of personal preference how you set your own definitions of unsafe. Perhaps you have an unguided mount, in which case you may be prepared to carry on imaging through a cloudy period, and the rain condition may be the only case that would cause you to close the roof. Someone else may be very risk-averse, and for them the page might look like this. Hopefully you now understand the relationship between the limits that you define on the Limits tab and the unsafe condition or conditions that you specify on the Unsafe tab. But what about the lower buttons? These are oral alarms, and to illustrate their use, I'm going to set them up on the cloudy, overcast and rain conditions. Right-click on the button and you'll be taken to a file selector that will allow you to select an audio file of your choice. I'm using a simple Windows audio clip for all 3 alarms, but if you wish, you can specify a different alarm for each button. Note that there is an option to play the sound continuously. If this is not selected, the alarm will only play once. Now, as long as the condition above the button has been selected, you can also select the associated audio alarm, and this will play any time that the unsafe condition is first detected. We can see the alarm button appear below the unsafe light. By clicking the button, we can silence the alarm. In this video, we've covered the first 4 tabs and seen the main features of the CloudWatcher. In the next video, we'll conclude our look at the CloudWatcher software by examining the Setup and Device tabs.